Maurice, play the trailer. All right, let's see if we get some. Wait till we get a couple of peeps in here. Look at us, 2 o'clock on the button. Goodness gracious!
Put the needle on the record.
Put the needle on the record.
The needle on the record.
Rob, you excited to come out, man?
I didn't realize I had told you I was coming out. That's a pretty personal question.
Not what I meant. Not what I meant. But you know what? Not that there's anything wrong with that. Hello, Howard. Hello, Ed Haney. How the hell are you, buddy?
Hi, guys.
Ed
I
Haney.
figure that should be my decision rather than yours.
Rob is coming to visit us in San Diego, and I just asked him when he's coming out, and now he's horribly, horribly offended.
Because that's a personal decision.
Exactly. Personal decision. Thank you.
Kim Hansen, hello.
Thank
How
you.
you doing?
Hey,
All right.
Howard. Hey, Kim.
We'll
Hey,
give it
Anthony.
we'll
Nice
give it,
to see
we'll
you.
give it to the end of this trailer. It's a very good trailer. There's a lot of explosions
Explosions.
and very brief shot. Remember when the Hulk movies had come out before this, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So they only show a
What?
brief shot of the Hulk's face in the trailer. I literally don't remember the Hulk at all. Like,
Which
I know
one?
I saw it, the Mark Ruffalo one. I know I saw it, but
No, that's why you don't remember it, because there is no Mark Ruffalo.
I was about to
Hulk,
say.
because it was Edward Norton.
It was Edward Norton and Eric Bana before MCU.
is that MCU or is that
No,
on
the
MCU?
Edward Norton is MCU.
Okay. Hello, Radimus. Hello, Dennis. So we'll
Maybe
talk
we'll-
Hey, Jared.
Maybe we'll talk
this.
about. Hey, maybe that's in the notes somewhere.
The notes that he
right.
absolutely and completely read all the way through.
Maybe I did. Maybe I did not. It's been a very busy week. Baby, ready to go to the main?
I am.
All right. 3, 2, 1. Hello, everyone. Happy Saturday to your smiling
guys.
faces or your scowling faces. If you're having a crappy day, I'm glad you're here because we're going to make your day less crappy. I can't say we're going to make it good, but I can say we will not add any turds to your poo wagon. That's what we will not do.
I
Yeah.
didn't. That's so many things I never
So
knew
many things.
existed.
So many
Never
things.
knew
Let's go.
existed.
Let's do just for the viewing audience only. Let's talk to. Oh, there we go.
There we go.
Keep talking, Rob Otto. I gotta fix your. Wagon here.
Did you put some poos in it?
Oh Lord! Every time, like instantly happens. Just instantly happens.
Okay. Hello, everyone in TV
Hey.
viewing land. Rob, we're
Oh,
gonna
am I
talk.
on now? See, I
are.
never get to see a little behind the scenes making of the sausage. All I see is the 2-shot of A and Scott the whole
Yeah.
time. we
Yeah,
do this.
that's
Any
true.
of the other bells and whistles.
Yeah.
So I never know when I'm on or not.
Yeah.
I just always assume that I am.
Yeah, true.
David, I'm glad you're here. Even though you can only hang out for a little bit, we're happy to have you, and I'm sure you got very, very important stuff. Carol Donahue, hello everyone. All right, we got a couple peeps in the chat room. Don't see if we have anybody from YouTube. If you're on YouTube, throw us a comment so we can see what the hell is going
David
on.
Roman. Hey,
And
Carol.
Sugar Plum, you ready to
Yeah, but
rock
you
and
guys
roll?
Hold on.
gonna combine these, maybe?
Wait.
What?
Before we get started, I
All
see
right.
you two have made the decision to not wear costumes. But seeing as that's a stupid ass decision, I've elected to ignore that decision. Yeah, and so I'm ignoring that stupid ass
my
decision.
God.
Oh no!
And
Oh my
there we go. There we
Fucking
go.
trench
All
coat.
It
right.
is awesome.
Now, here's the problem. How do I see
feel
my
it.
notes over here? Is
I don't know, buddy.
I mean, I could turn my head, but that seems exhausting.
All I know is I screwed up the Tony
plus,
Stark beard. So
did
yeah.
screw
Oh
up
wait,
the
we got
Tony
more.
It also doesn't work very well with my reading glasses. So I think we're gonna have to just.
No, leave it
And
on.
isn't
Put it
it
back
like-
on. Robbie, put it back on for a second. I'm gonna take a screenshot.
Is
need to
it
put it
like
back on.
400 degrees in where you
Hang
are?
on. All right, let me got my leather. Here we
Okay,
go.
ready? And here we go. One more. I gotta post this social media stuff. All right, we're gonna get started with the show in a second here. We're just celebrating the wonder that is Rob Otto. That guy's playing Galaga. Very good, David.
Yes.
So, hello, Maria, of course.
Hey,
Maria D'Souza
Maria.
says you look ridiculous. And that's Maria's trademark line
That's
when it
what
comes
we're
to eye
going for.
patches. All right, now here we go, baby. Are you ready?
I think we are going to just combine the two now that we've done all that intro, and I'm
All
going
right.
to just intro at one time. So we're going
Yeah.
to count down to live, okay?
Wait a minute. So we start from here?
Yes, and I'm
Yes.
just going to I'm going to cut that out down.
Which part are you cutting out, baby girl?
We normally repeat it when we do the restart, but I'm just going to do all that. Just
All right. I'll wait for my cue.
sounds great.
I'll wait for my cue. All right, and let me start recording. Und in 3, 2.
This is episode 73 of StorySmack. a podcast about stories and storytellers in the world of pop culture. My name is A.B. Sigler, audiobook narrator and founding partner at Empty Set Entertainment.
And my name is Scott Sigler, #1 New York Times bestselling novelist, and this will come as no surprise to anyone. My secret is I'm always angry.
And with us, as usual, is Empty Set movie maven Rob Otto. Hey, Rob, how are you?
I am excellent. Clinch up, Legolas.
So we on the left go. Of course, today we are discussing the 2012 movie The Avengers. And before we have Scott tell us about the movie man synopsis, the movie voice synopsis, we on the West Coast, we're drinking Thor cocktails. Do you have a themed cocktail, sir?
Well, I figured since we are celebrating the release of Natasha Romanov's movie, I am drinking a Black Widow.
Oh, what a beautiful
fabulous.
drink that
With
is.
the
Cheers.
Black cherries and everything.
Oh, my God.
What a pretty cheers.
Babe, we got to go see that movie.
We do.
Anybody, if you are in the viewing
Yes,
audience and you
you
brought a
do.
is it very good? If you brought a cocktail to the party, we hope you tip it up right now. If you brought water to the party or nothing at all, we say
Chocolate chip
cheers to
cookies,
you.
whatever.
Happy to have you. Happy to have you.
In case anybody's wondering, a Thor cocktail is whiskey, American whiskey, honey, lemon juice, and topped off with sparkling wine. It's a little bit of a dark horse, but a pretty tasty drink.
And the Black Widow,
All right.
there's a couple versions of it. One is with tequila, but I'm not really a tequila fan, so I went with vodka, and I actually went with watermelon vodka because it's summer. And then some black cherry juice and some fresh squeezed, I squoze it myself, lemon juice. And some tonic water and a couple of black cherries.
Yep.
So we're good.
Bunch of great people in the chat room. We do this live on video if you're listening to the podcast. John Reeves, hello. David Roman, Kim Hansen, everybody. The people are giving us their cheers to the
John
various
Reeves,
cocktails.
I know I owe you an email. I'm going to get that done today.
Yes. All right.
Okay, so now we're on to would you give us the movie voice synopsis,
I will.
please?
Here we go. When Thor's evil brother Loki gains access to the unlimited power of the energy cube called the Tesseract, Nick Fury, director of S.H.I.E.L.D., initiates a superhero recruitment effort to defeat the unprecedented threat to Earth. Joining Fury's dream team are Iron Man, Captain America, the Hulk, Thor, the Black Widow, and that other guy with the bow that nobody really cares about.
Come on, that ain't fair.
I would also like to point out that he is of Asgard, but he is adopted.
Yes. All right, let's get in. Let's do my favorite part of all of this. It's about money. It's about the cash.
This is the craziest. I love the MCU for this reason. This is just so insane. So it was made in 2012 at a cost of $220 million. $220 million in 2012 equates to about $226 million today. So pretty close to real-time dollars, I mean. And it made $1.51 billion at the box office,
That
you
is-
guys. Woo. And then, we're going to have
that's just at the box office?
Yes.
Holy shnikes.
And soon, I'm sure, in the next few months, we're going to have a StorySmack where somebody asks, like, why do we keep rehashing old stuff? I have 1.51 billion reasons that it's worth retreading sometimes.
Yes. And to those of you who are listening at home or listening in the podcast after we release this later, if you're hearing fans in the background, that is because it's hot as all of the superheroes' crotches are in those leather and lycra outfits.
Yeah,
it's very warm. It's very.
You think
very
Iron
warm.
Man has the worst of it? He's
No, he gets
encased in
AC.
iron?
He
Oh,
gets
that's true.
AC.
He does get AC.
I think Thor's got the worst of it. He's got all that.
I can't
extra
imagine
mass.
Yes, I don't think he bathes regularly. I'm just saying. That's a crotchal region that I'm, as exciting, as interesting as it is, I'm not sure I'm going to go anywhere near it.
Casey Arglez or Chasey Arglez, I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. Welcome to the show. Seems excited that she gets a chance to see us on the camera, and of course David Lamb in there too. All right, let's get into what's favorite moments.
Yeah, so we have been always kind of doing general thoughts here, and we just recently added actually favorite moments, and they sort of are the same thing. So we're going to talk about specifically each one of our favorite moments and a little bit generally about the movie as well. Robbie, do you want to go first?
I got to tell you, there could have been 30 favorite moments from this movie because it is just so well written, so well acted, so well directed, so well, marriage of technology and everything. It's just so excellent. But as an AC/DC fan from way back, that moment that Tony Stark flies in at Stuttgart and he overrides the PA system in Black Widow's Quinjet, and Shoot to Thrill starts playing over the PA system. I'm just like, yeah, okay, yep. He's one of ours. That's my guy. I'm with that guy.
That makes sense.
AC/DC
honestly,
was
so many great quips,
Yes.
moments, one-liners. Fantastic film, but that's the one it makes me smile every time I see it.
For sure. I these gentlemen know this, but I had never seen this movie until watching it in preparation for this. I can't tell you why. Yeah, it's such a heartbreak because it's been out for so long. It's absolutely delightful. It's fun and works on a whole bunch of really superficial levels, but it also works on really deeper levels. If the more you know, I think, and I don't know a ton about it, but I think the more you know about the comics, it probably helps a little. But I don't think I needed to because I loved the movie and I don't know a lot about the comics.
That was one of the key things. Like, even though it was true to the comics in many, many ways and delighted comic book fans like Rob and I don't think you needed to know a goddamn thing about the comics.
And I didn't know very much about it. So I'll say without a reservation, I have told the story on some cast with Scott before, but when I was a little kid, my brother loved the TV show The Incredible Hulk, and I was a teeny tiny kid, and I was terrified, absolutely terrified of the Hulk when he got green and Lou Ferrigno. And I would run away and run down the hall and hide under the covers on my parents' bed because I couldn't handle it. Because you wouldn't like him when he's angry, right? Like, that's the thing. If you know nothing else about the Hulk, you know you wouldn't like him when he's angry.
If you had been a little kid to see the Mark Ruffalo better special effects version of it, I think
might not have been as
you'd still be in a
terrified,
coma.
No,
it's
I
so
don't
much
know.
scarier. It's so much scarier.
I actually think because there's more storytelling there, I might have been more okay with it or I was just too little. So that leads to my favorite moment in this movie, which is no holds barred. I never get it right. I can never guess what a character is going to say. And spoiler alert, there's a moment where the only answer, the only way to save the day is for Dr. Banner to become the Hulk. And he walks on into that fray. And they say, no, you're not supposed to get angry. How are you? And he turns around and he says, the secret is... my secret is I'm always angry. And it moved me so much. I like got all teary and I was like, he's always angry. Of course he is. And I just think, that I knew so little about the MCU, but I knew that. And that was really special.
There's a lot of anger in the Sigler household, just on a regular state of the normal day. But my favorite part of all of this stuff has got to be the MCU casting director, Sarah Finn. Rob and I have been immersed in comic books our entire lives. We know these characters intimately. And you look at the cast of the Avengers. Okay, a lot of people could have played Hawkeye. I didn't see anything out of Jeremy Renner's performance. I'm like, it can only be him. But trying to top Robert Downey Jr., he is Tony Stark. He's absolutely perfect. Chris Evans cannot imagine a better casting for Captain America unless he had black hair. You can't, it's just so pitch perfect. And Scarlett Johansson as Black Widow. And am I missing one?
Well, I do think that Loki, there could have been other people who could play Loki.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how that will go now because of Tom Hiddleston's stellar performance and continuing in the MCU.
I'm not sure I agree with that.
You think only him?
Hiddleston is
he's
well
so
cast.
No, that's the point I'm making.
Chris
is
Hemsworth too.
Chris
right.
Hemsworth as Thor was brilliant, and then I'm sure the entire team went to work with Chris Evans and Chris Hemsworth. Like, you guys got to do some body transformations with this, and Chris Evans looking like he's walking around with CGI, but he's not. That's his actual body. And Chris Hemsworth, was just an incredible job by the casting director, Sarah Finn, and that's my favorite part. They did so good.
I do think, though, that Tom Hiddleston and Chris Hemsworth were relatives unknowns in the movies at the time. They had done sort of smaller things, or not at least, because what is as big as the Avengers? But I think that they made the roles iconic in a way where Robert Downey Jr. came with like the bad boy part of him and all that other stuff that he brought to the Tony Stark. But now I think it's hard to see it in any other way.
Let's move on. Since we're talking about the actors, let's move on to the cast here. It looks like I have screwed that up.
No, that's it. Joss Whedon. We can
gotta
start
go
there.
back one. Gotta go back one. Gotta go back one. There we go. Boom. Here we go.
Okay.
Now, for those of you watching at home, we've got our cast pictures up, and let's get into the cast.
So
Tell us about Joss Whedon and Zach Penn.
So Joss Whedon directed.
It's hard to say Joss and not Josh.
It's real hard.
Yeah, directed it, and Zach Penn wrote the original screenplay. As it happens, when Joss Whedon took over the directorial role, he hated the screenplay and he pretty much rewrote the entire thing, which is interesting because Zach Penn is actually sort of an action movie wonderkind. He got his big break at 23 years old, writing The Last Action Hero, and he sold that in 1992. He's gone on to sharpen his chops with X-Men movies, Elektra, The Incredible Hulk, and the Avengers TV shows, and is about to script a Karate Kid 2 remake. So it's weird. Like, I wonder what that... How could you absolutely hate that when he's such a great action star? But anyway, Whedon wanted... Zach Penn wrote an original but loose script. Joss Whedon read it and hated most of it and would only agree to direct if he got to rewrite the script almost from scratch. Penn still got a story credit, but only Whedon is listed as the film's writer. Whedon wanted to mix action and comedy and drama and cited The Dirty Dozen, Dr. Strangelove, and Black Hawk Down as inspirations where he was headed, and especially how they dealt with a bunch of people that didn't easily blend together and how day-long battles were very wearisome on soldiers.
Yes. My favorite has got to be, of course, Robert Downey Jr.
You're a big fan of him.
And I wasn't a huge fan of him until this series. There was nothing wrong with him. I didn't dislike him at all, but I'm like, he's good. He's perfectly fine. I'll see something if he's in it. But after his turn as Tony Stark, it was perfect casting for him. He'd been a star in Hollywood. He's been a star in Hollywood for so long before this movie, it's hard to list all of his successes. But going all the way back to Weird Science, SNL, Less Than Zero, he played Chaplin. He was in Natural Born Killers, In Dreams, Ally McBeal on TV, Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, Zodiac, The Incredible Hulk, Sherlock Holmes, and, of course, Tropic Thunder. He is a star that has earned the success the hard way, and he's perfect Tony Stark. Now, Robert Downey Jr., kept food hidden all over the lab set, and apparently nobody could find where it was. So they let him just keep doing it. In the movie, that's his actual food he's offering, and when he was eating it, if it wasn't scripted, he was just hungry. So,
Which seems like a crazy, strange thing, but I read in preparation for this that he's become a vegan. So I wonder if he was a vegan all the way back then, or like kludging into it and like, Jesus, there's a lot
you remember
going
the
on.
scene where he's in the lab with Bruce Banner?
Yeah.
And he asks him a question, and when he gets it right, he offers him, those are blueberries he's eating, like organic blueberries. Yeah. And so the rest of the cast got so used to it, Ruffalo just reaches in and grabs a couple blueberries and just kept going. Right? It was
But
just-
even that-
they worked so well together.
yes, it works so well, and even that touch of Robert Downey getting so into the character that the rules just don't apply to him because he is that special. He did that very well. Downey got so into Tony Stark's head that Whedon encouraged him to just say what Tony would. His "Let's just not come in tomorrow" speech after landing back on Earth was improvised. He was supposed to say "What's next?" He also improvised "Doth mother know thou weareth her drapes?" And he improvised, and that man is playing Galaga. We didn't like the last one so much, he added the shot later of the guy playing Galaga. I thought that
just
was
a great
in the script.
moment.
Yep.
Oh my
Just
God,
a
that's
great
incredible.
moment, right?
Yep.
That's how good Robert Downey Jr. was. He was Tony Stark.
Yes.
So good.
And
Yeah.
Going all the way back to
Look
Weird
at teeny
Science.
tiny.
There
This
is
is a
Weird
picture of
Science.
a Weird Science Robert Downey
Just
Jr. on the
incredible.
screen right
Just
now.
incredible.
Rob.
Now he's younger than my nephews are now. It's kind of crazy. But absolutely spectacular guy. But now let's get into the guy who really captured Thor, which I didn't think anybody was going to be able to do. I didn't think they would get a guy who was big enough, blonde enough, if you will, and able to capture Thor. Rob, tell us about Chris Hemsworth.
Yeah, Chris Hemsworth, I just love his performance here. And it's funny because his first two solo movies aren't very good. I think they figured out what to do with him by Ragnarok, when they turned him into a bit of a comic foil. And we see some
Yeah.
of that, some of his little one-liners, he's adopted, that kind of stuff that happens here. But at the time that Hemsworth auditioned, they actually wanted his younger brother, Liam, who's the guy that starred in the... what's the Katniss?
Hunger Games.
Hunger Games. Yeah,
Yeah.
right. So that was Liam, and they wanted him first. And they also looked at Charlie Hunnam, Alexander Skarsgård, Tom Hiddleston was
Oh, as
even
Thor?
considered. I know, as Thor. Right. Exactly right. Yeah, exactly right. But Hemsworth they thought he physically embodied it. He is bigger than most of the other actors. He's not one of those 5'6" guys. He's an actual sized human being.
Okay.
Which just made him naturally bigger than everybody else. Now he had shot Cabin in the Woods at the time, which
Right.
was really
Love
supposed
that
to be
movie.
his big turn, but it didn't get released until after Thor. So he really was an absolute unknown before that movie and just kind of embodied it. He also played James Hunt in the film Rush, which again helped show that he could handle kind of the action side of it and the smarmy side of the role. And he just embraced it. It's interesting that in the Thor movie, he's surrounded mostly by other Asgardians, right? He's got a couple of humans that he acts with, but he's still acting on that higher plane. By the time Avengers comes around, he's interacted with a lot more humans, and it just seems more human. And he's picking up their snark and picking up some of their smarm. And just, there's that moment, guys, talk about how many moments there are in this film, but when Hulk turns into the Hulk inside the helicarrier, right? And Thor comes to tackle him, and Hulk throws him across the room. And there's just a close-up on Chris Hemsworth's face. And he gets just a little bit of a smile.
Yeah.
He's like, combat, a worthy opponent.
Yep.
That's Thor. That's
Yep.
exactly what
Perfect.
Thor is. In that moment, he completely captured it. And I think Hemsworth does a great job in this role.
The other thing Hemsworth does is he went to work in the gym. He really went to work in the gym. And I wouldn't say he achieved quite actual superhero, but like The Rock has literally a superhero body, right?
Yeah.
Right.
But
I mean,
Dwayne
so
Johnson
does
does
Chris
amazing
Evans, kind
things.
of.
Chris Evans nailed Captain America's physique, but the work Chris Hemsworth must have put in to get that bod to be Thor in all those movies, as someone who's been in athletics all my life, that was an enormous amount of work, enormous amount of dietary sacrifice to get that done, and kudos to him.
And I'll also say I found it interesting. Of course, I will remind you guys I didn't read a lot of the comic books. I did read a lot of mythology, though. In fact, majored in it in my freshman year of college for no good reason. Because what the hell do you do with that degree?
I've been married to you for over a year. I did not know that.
Oh, really? Yeah. Actually, just the first 6 months. The first 6 months, and then I was like, "Oh, what am I doing? Like, how would I get a job?"
I started as accountant my first year, so yours is much more interesting than mine is.
Where did you end up?
Broadcasting, of course, because, accountant, broadcasting.
Yeah, I started there, and I ended up with a theater degree and a chemistry degree, and now I publish books. So, if life is weird. But my point was this. One of the things that is beautiful about Chris Hemsworth's performance in this movie is he and Loki are brothers. In the mythology, what's important is that they are opposites, but while adopted, still brothers. They're still family.
Is Loki is the adopted thing? Is that actual true to the mythos, or do they add that for the movies?
No, that's true to the mythos.
Loki's adopted in.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Or raised as a member of the royal family, but not born of the royal family.
Fine, continue.
And it's essential for the mischief that Loki creates for him to really, truly, wholly be understood and loved by Thor, and vice versa. Like Loki loves to hate Thor, but loves Thor. That's how it works, and that's how all of that works. So to see the little bit of mischief in Chris Hemsworth, even though we don't get a lot of what Tom Hiddleston eventually brings to Loki in subsequent movies and stuff, we get some of that, but we don't get all the smarm, we don't get all the sass, we don't get all of that here because he's being introduced as a villain. You sort of see the familial link there that I think only strengthens their characters as the movies go on.
All right, so now let's talk about the gentleman. We had just an awesome superhero fight. Real quick, I think Rob will agree with this. Rob and I suffered through many years of Hollywood people trying to tell Marvel how to make movies, and basically okay, we'll take Spider-Man and we'll take all these people and then do nothing that you see in the comic books. Let's make Spider-Man fight cops. Let's make Hulk fight a cloud. And when this movie came out, we got to see genuine, actual superhero fights, balls out superhero fights that wasn't even good for people, like Thor, Captain America, and Iron Man beating the crap out of each other in a forest. I was beside myself with delight to actually see what I had grown up with finally put on a screen with great special effects and great actors. And
it's funny you say that, because one of the things that I noticed about that is you also superheroes aren't human, and that's a very human moment that they just had, arguing essentially with each other, and that's kind of nice because it familiarizes them a little bit for us.
Let's go on.
Also, let's hold on, Scott. Let's get into the editing really quick as well. It's not that quick jump cut. They show a few seconds of the fight before they change angles, and so we actually get to
choreographed.
see
it's
things
choreographed.
happening.
Yeah.
Yes, it's choreographed. Why not show the choreography? And thankfully, they did that when they edited many of these fight scenes.
And we were in the height of shaky cam when this movie came out.
Yep.
You know, if you watch the first Hunger Games movie, we brought that up earlier, but the first Hunger Games movie is just garbage fight scenes. There's no reason for it to be shaky cam whatsoever. Yep. This movie got us away from that. So let's talk about the man who captures the Hulk. Oops, I had a bunch of other Hemsworth pictures. Tell us about Mark Ruffalo.
So Mark Ruffalo wasn't sure that he had what it took to be good in a big superhero movie. Robert Downey Jr., who of course co-starred with Ruffalo in Zodiac, so they knew each other, texted him, Ruffalo, let's go, let's do this. And apparently that was all it took. If Tony Stark thought he could be the Hulk, he could be the Hulk.
To be fair, if Chris Hemsworth ever texts me and says,
Robert Downey Jr.
Sigurd, let's go, we're doing this, let's go. I'm like, whatever it is, I'm in.
Where are the keys? I gotta go. Yeah.
First.
The plan originally was to have Edward Norton reprise the Banner Hulk role from 2008's The Incredible Hulk, but contract negotiations stalled, and they eventually went with Ruffalo. Joaquin Phoenix was also considered for the part and was later considered again to play Doctor Strange.
Also would have been good. He can do a lot of stuff.
The Hulk bringing Iron Man back to consciousness by roaring at him was improvised by Mark Ruffalo during his motion capture performances and ended up in the final product.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's how good these people are. And I'm sure they improvise a lot of stuff we don't see, but some of the key iconic moments of this movie where even the director, and they have hundreds of people set up and lighting and all this other stuff, and then the actors it's just like they're on a stage at community theater, like, I'll improvise this. And like, that's going in the cut. We'll do it.
And there's a handful of clips while I was preparing the script for today's show. There's a whole bunch of, like Chris Evans or whoever, there's these people playing parts and roles in completely animated films. And you've seen this. There's like Brad Pitt plays a hero. Like you've seen people in the sound booth recording their part for their animated thing. And I think it was Mark Ruffalo, but I can't remember what the show was. And he's acting his absolute heart out behind the microphone. He's not just doing it with his voice. He's moving and he's, it's everything. So you can sort of see why that translates. The last little bit about Mark Ruffalo is for the Hulk's voice, and this is, of course, a picture of the Mark Ruffalo as the Hulk. The voice, whenever he speaks, as the Hulk, he doesn't speak very much, and it's a combination of Lou Ferrigno's voice from the original TV show.
Did they bring Ferrigno in?
No. Did they?
They did.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
They specifically recorded Ferrigno to add his voice to...
And
that's
Ruffalo's
insane.
Isn't that great?
Isn't that cool?
That is such a love letter to the things, to the past. Yeah, like,
yeah,
of
to
course,
you guys.
Yep,
we all grew up watching the Hulk, and like every week it'd be like, is the Hulk gonna fight a supervillain? No, it's a bear. Is the Hulk gonna fight a supervillain? No, it's a bank robber. And like I had to wait till the Avengers came out to see anybody friggin' fight a supervillain.
40 years old. But thankfully, mentally, we're still 12.
That's
so
good.
it works out just fine.
It totally works out.
Now let's go one more Ruffalo, and let's talk about Scarlett Johansson, which I can never for the life of me pronounce her name correctly. Johansson or Johansson? It's Johansson.
Joe. Hard J.
Yeah,
oh, is it?
There you go.
Hard
See
J.
what I'm talking about? It's crazy. Yep. Scarlett Johansson, who I first saw.
It's also Scarlett.
No,
it isn't.
Listen, she'll call me to correct us later. It'll be okay.
This actress that I first saw in Eight-Legged Freaks and even in that David Arquette movie, which is a lovely, lovely creature feature, quite wonderful. She was 15 when she did that. You're like, okay, this is the standout person in this cast. It's pretty fun. And she joined the MCU as Black Widow in 2009 and has faithfully executed the role since. She got an audition after Emily Blunt turned the role down, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah.
She breaks out. Her breakout was Sofia Coppola's film Lost in Translation. Then in 2005, crashes in the genre with The Island with Ewan McGregor. It's a bunch of bull. Her breakout was Eight-Legged Freaks. I will stand by that story.
Okay.
She did a great job. And, along with Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans, it's really difficult to imagine another actor capturing this role so perfectly from, the voluptuousness of an actual comic book character and being able to capture all of the internal strife of her backstory. And her backstory is super deep. If you go into the comic books, it's super deep. It's of course,
it's super dark, too.
It's super dark. She was a Russian-trained assassin and was taught to use her, like La Femme Nikita, use her looks and her sensuality to lure men and women into vulnerable situations and then
Sure.
take them out.
Oh,
and she captures all of that. She does it so well.
And we had been talking, of course, we watched the movie in advance of doing the StorySmack script. We talked to each other. Rob introduced our favorite parts part of the movie, which is a terrific addition to the show. When we were talking about that, both Rob and Scott, one of their favorite moments, I think, unless I'm getting this wrong, was the interrogation scene.
Oh my God.
With
so good.
at the beginning when we first see Black Widow, she's chained to a chair. She's absolutely being tortured, and then her cell phone rings. And it's a beautiful thing. It's a really lovely thing because without even trying, or well, no, I think purposefully trying, but I never saw it coming until we were talking about it after the fact. When her cell phone rings and she's like, "Hey, I got to take this." And what? I'm working.
I'm
She's
working.
talking
Yeah,
on
I'm
her
working.
as she's
God, such a
chained
great
to a
line.
chair. And what happens in that moment, and I didn't realize it until after, is every single person who is watching that movie at that moment becomes a character in the room with her. Because every single one in the room with her thought they had the upper hand, just like we thought they had the upper hand until that second.
Yeah, to say I'm working.
And then there were, until the I'm working moment.
Yeah.
And then we're all the people in the room with
And then-
her, and all of us are like, wait, what?
Yep.
And
But
all of
she
a sudden
says,
we're in the movie.
these idiots are giving me everything. And the
Yeah.
guy's like, I'm not giving her everything. What's she talking about? It's just like, damn, she
It's
was in
just
charge
so
the
clever.
whole
Yeah, the whole time.
Yeah.
The whole time.
So good.
So clever.
good.
So clever.
Yep. And that was one of the big scenes in the movie that I was waiting to experience it. I was fortunate enough to see Avengers Endgame with Rob, so all the movies I'd missed, the connections I forgot, I was able to leave Rob like, oh, is that one guy with the girl? And what's that thing?
That
and
guy
Rob be
with
like,
the thing. Is he,
that's the
I thought
dude.
he was with those guys.
That's
No,
the dude from
other
the
guy.
lab, and also he's got, and I'd be like, and I got to enjoy it so much, one of the best
Wait, I
movie
thought they were in the
experiences
channel. What's happening
yeah,
now?
but getting to watch that interrogation scene, was
Knowing what was coming, and I
spectacular.
didn't-
and I had to hold it back, and to the point where she's like, "I'm working." It was great.
So I
All
will
right.
say something. This is the moment you, if you're listening to the podcast, you won't be able to see this. But I collected all the photos that are being shown on the video cast right now of all the actors. Normally Scott does that. Today I did that, and it was difficult. Two things were quite difficult: to get enough photos of Chris Hemsworth with clothes on. 'Cause I didn't want it to be shirtless. I figured that was unfair. That was
That
difficult.
doesn't sound very difficult to really anyone, honestly.
Yeah, yeah.
And finding a casual photo, either not of Scarlett Johansson in a costume or working, or in a gown, or on a like dressed up because she's doing promotion or something. Almost impossible to find a casual
Yeah.
photo of her. So that's why, excuse me, if you're watching, that's why all of these are gorgeous, because I tried, but there's not very many
And
casual photos.
she's just so incredible in this role.
Yeah, she
the
does
three
such
of
a
them,
great
to me, Evans, Robert Downey Jr., Scarlett Johansson, are just, as a lifelong comic book fan, could not believe how perfectly they captured. They didn't reinterpret the role as some other thing. I thought they were all just
And
perfect.
I think Rob made a really good point. I would add Chris Hemsworth to that as he grew into
Yes.
the Thor role.
Yes,
where
yes.
he finally found his rhythm and they found
Well,
how to best use
Thor: The Lost
everything.
World was just incredible. Incredible. All right, let's talk about Jeremy Renner. Robbie, hit me.
So you mentioned that pretty much anybody could have played Hawkeye.
Yeah.
And you're probably right, because we don't get, of any of the characters in all of their appearances so far, we don't get a lot of character growth from Jeremy Renner. The closest we get to that is in Infinity War and Endgame. Well, really Endgame, right? When he becomes Ronin. So I'm looking forward to the Disney Plus series, the Hawkeye series.
Oh, is there a series coming out?
Yeah.
Oh my
just
God.
just to see it's him and it's Kate Bishop, the younger Hawkeye.
Okay.
And it'll be interesting to see if we can get some intimate growth from Jeremy Renner. But pretty much he's a one-story guy.
To be fair,
up
he
to this point.
hasn't been given a whole lot to work with. I mean, I think
No.
he did very well. All the things they gave him, he
Yes.
did that very, very well, but he was not given the palette that Chris Hemsworth was given.
Exactly.
Or that Chris Evans was. He just didn't have as much to work with.
Absolutely correct. And honestly, the whole, I'm a world-class spy and agent, all the good stuff Scarlett Johansson gets to do.
Right.
I mean, that's just the way it is. So, really interestingly, coming into this movie, Jeremy Renner basically went to Joss Whedon and said, you know what, you should kill Hawkeye off. Said, it's not going anywhere, and it could be a good tentpole for this movie, so you should probably just kind of kill him off. And they didn't, and now I'm hoping, we did get some of the payoff in Infinity War and Endgame, right? And maybe
Yep.
we'll get some more in the Hawkeye series. But that being said, Jeremy Renner did not slack, right? He did not take his time and just, right? Okay, I mean, he did the working out as well. He trained with Olympic archers just to get it down. And here's the interesting thing. Hawkeye is, of course, ambidextrous, right? He can do anything with either hand. You see him at sometimes left-handed. A lot of the time, he's shooting right-handed. Jeremy Renner is left-handed. So he had to train really hard just to make it look
Rob,
natural.
do you have any idea why they would just not give the fucker a left-handed bow? Like, why would they go through that work?
Because Hawkeye doesn't need it.
Because the character doesn't need it. He's as good with either hand. That's part of the character. So Jeremy Renner had to be good with any weapon in either hand. And you see it, it comes both, and Black Widow does the same thing, right? But when they're fighting hand to hand, sometimes they get one hand locked out and they drop the knife into the other hand and they're able to kind of
Yeah,
keep
it's a
going.
good fight. That's a very good fight.
It's the same idea. They're so well trained that they're well trained with either hand. Renner had to teach himself how to be right-handed.
That's insane.
And what's insane for me is
respect.
you guys who have seen the show before may know I am not terribly sporty, and I wasn't sporty because I wasn't allowed to play team sports because I have a congenital kidney defect, which means I was allowed to do archery in high school. So I did a lot of archery in high school, and oh my goodness, it's very difficult to switch. It's so difficult to switch. And it's sort of like sometimes actors learn to play the piano like one specific song so that they can have one close-up where it pans down their body and they're playing. And I know that is incredibly difficult to do and make it look natural. And I feel like switching your dominant hand in archery, especially if you haven't been an archer your whole life long, wow, that's hard to do. It's so impressive.
I'm excited about this miniseries because my comic book knowledge is a little fuzzy, but I think one of the very first miniseries was Wolverine, the 4-issue Wolverine miniseries. It might have been the first that Marvel put out. Hawkeye miniseries was right on the heels of that. And I remember getting the Hawkeye miniseries and liking everything about it until they got to the part where a really good archer doesn't even need a bow, and he starts throwing arrows and shit. I was like, tap out. Before tap out, I was thinking, like, I love this series, but I'm tapping out. You cannot throw a fucking arrow, bro. It's not how that works.
That is not how that works.
I've been hoping, because what they did next with Hawkeye is they made him the leader of the new West Coast branch of the Avengers.
Oh, sweet.
And I was
kind
of hoping that they might shift in that direction, and who knows, maybe that's what the Hawkeye series is going to be about.
Let's
could be interesting to see.
Let's they always want to expand properties to get more characters in. Let's get on to, of course, Mr. Chris Evans, who I have a huge man crush on.
Me too.
He has America's ass. I mean, come on.
He lets people forget.
We all know it.
He was also the Human Torch. And and that's a very different personality, although the physicality is basically identical, right? But he was, when the nurse is checking his temperature as Human Torch, he's like, "You're high." He's like, "Thank you. So are you." Like he did such a good job, and he was very young when he did
Steve
that.
Rogers.
Yeah, well,
I mean, in all that which was CGI.
Hey, Barry Bowers.
He was also in the parts of him when he was uber skinny. As Steve Rogers, he also, wasn't a very, very buff dude pretending to be like tiny and thin and the 98-pound weakling.
Well.
He actually, did that. He was so empathetic and so sympathetic as that 98-pound weakling that now you're like, yes, he does have America's. Yes,
he did.
I think we've got to give a lot of credit to Kevin Feige.
Feige, I think
it's Feige, right? Fiji, sure. Fiji, Kevin Fiji. Yes, exactly right. Right. We got to give a lot of credit to Fiji drinking water. For since he was in Fantastic Four, to give him even a shot to be Captain America.
That's crazy. I never thought about that. That's crazy.
Marvel wanted to distance itself from those crappy Fox movies as much as they could.
Terrible movies.
And to cast him in Captain America: The First Avenger was not a home run that a lot of people thought it could be. We look back and say, well, who the hell else could have done it? But at the time, that took some balls. So I give Fiji Water a lot of credit for that.
I think there's several actors, some we know, probably a bunch we don't, who could have done well at that role. But I mean, just Chris Evans just absolutely crushed it as a kid growing up reading comic books.
Yep.
When I think of Captain America, I was like, it's almost like they 3D printed that dude. It's like that, like and you say with the 98-pound weakling stuff, as an actual living 98-pound weakling. I was 98 pounds.
But, you know,
my sophomore year of football, and the only person under 100 pounds, and he captured that sublime frustration perfectly.
And we've seen that in other movies, and I don't even think it's worth naming. Like, we've seen like this skinny. There's a Julia Roberts movie where she's, of course, Julia Roberts, but she plays a fat version of Julia Roberts in the future or the past or whatever. And then it's Billy Crystal in it. And anyway, a lot of times they are still their hugely confident, I am the most gorgeous person on earth self. Their personality is the same. Gwyneth Paltrow did Shallow Hal with Jack Black, which was terrible.
Yeah.
And she was Gwyneth Paltrow in a foam rubber suit. She had all the confidence that a brilliant, like a billionaire, a millionaire, beautiful, all the surgery, all the workout, all the chefs, all the whatever. And then she was pretending. Yeah, she was pretending to be, and it didn't ring true. Now, if she wanted, I'm not talking about the politics of the movie, but she didn't seem like a real character.
No.
And Julia Roberts in the fat suit didn't really seem, and that was okay because it was little snapshots from the back in the day, but she seemed fake. Chris Evans as Steve Rogers with all that CGI absolutely felt real to me.
If that was the first time you'd ever seen him, you would have thought that's what he looks like.
That's why there's one of these photos. If you're watching this, that photo, that's actually Kate Bosworth. And he's in a movie with Kate Bosworth, and she just shared this recently. That's teeny tiny Chris Hemsworth when he was a baby, and he's this skinny dude,
And that's before he went ape shit in the gym and went to work. Like it had to take. I'm gonna guess it had to take 18 months.
And here's the thing:
people say,
people like me. I am not saying this, but like normal people like me sometimes say, like, well, sure. If I had all that, if I was getting paid to work out 6 hours a day in the gym, I'd look like that too. And here's the thing: I will be honest with you guys. If I was paid 6 hours to work out 6 hours a day in the gym, I'd get fired. I would not work out 6 hours a day. I just wouldn't do it, right? So there's something to be said. I know he got paid to do it. All right. He still put the work in.
Let's talk about somebody who put in some time in the gym, but also was dressed in a costume the entire time. The engaging, incredibly charming Mr. Tom Hiddleston.
Yeah. And Tom Hiddleston comes from, he's a Brit, and he is a well-trained stage actor. Comes with an enormous amount of acting training for the stage, Shakespearean acting, film acting. I think he went to RADA, if I'm not wrong, the Royal Academy of Dramatic Arts. I'm pretty sure he did. Or he worked with the Stratford-on-Avon. Yeah. And then he is Loki in the biggest of big Hollywood movies. And I think he did a terrific job.
He crushed it.
Yeah. He's also a really awesome human. So I think, there's something to be said. So many of the Avengers, the actual Avengers, or the Avengers cast, I'll say, because he's, of course, not an Avenger, are really like talented actors, willing to work really hard, but also just this is a very cohesive group, and it works really well together. And I think Tom Hiddleston is part of that too. In the scene where Loki is wearing his full horn helmet and he gets hit by Thor, Tom Hiddleston told Chris Hemsworth that since the horns weigh almost 30 pounds, he was having trouble selling the hit. And so he suggested that Chris hit him in the face for real, and regretted it almost instantly.
Hold on. Let me tell you something. When Robert Downey Jr. texts me and says, Sig, we're doing this, let's go. The answer is yes. When it's like, Chris Hemsworth wants to punch me in the face, no.
Well, I did summer stock in 1990. I was in 1 year. I did summer stock 1 year, and I did a show called The Trojan Women, and I played Cassandra. And Cassandra in Greek mythology is insane because she sees the future, and nobody will believe her that she's seeing the future. And
so it was typecasting?
Yeah, exactly. And I had a similar moment to this where somebody, Hecuba, Zeus is supposed to come up and like smack some sense into me. And it just wasn't working. And I was like, okay, Laura, just hit me. Just hit me. I'll turn with you, but just hit me. And she did, and I forgot all of the rest of my lines for the
scene. She knocked them right out of your head.
And literally, she just kept repeating her line, and I was like, maybe if we stay. I said out loud, maybe if we stay here, we'll all die. However...
There's also another part that Hiddleston gets right. His hair, at all times, looks greasy. And I don't know what it is. It's like a natural thing for him, but it's just like a grease helmet.
It matches the comic books.
Still looks good, but it's just like it's like perfect for Loki because he's a little bit slimy.
He's very
Yeah, and I mentioned this.
Perfect.
It's so good. And I mentioned this a little earlier. You know, Loki doesn't have he is of Asgard. He doesn't have the requirement that he has to be hugely buff or whatever. But as Loki grows up in the MCU, he does change. His physicality changes. He gets a little bit bulkier. He gets a little bit like snarkier and sassier. But in this movie, he's great because he is exactly the villain he will become, but he's not the full realized version of Loki. And I think that's right. So if you're a person like me who's not terribly familiar with the comics, you totally get that he's a villain, even though he's likable and funny in some ways and attractive and all that sort of stuff.
Okay.
So let's just move on. Can we move to Sam Jackson now?
Yeah. And then, of course, it's almost impossible to do a story smack without talking about Samuel L. Jackson because he is, by definition, the biggest box office star of all time.
Isn't that amazing?
This human being we're looking at right now, if you're watching the live cast, if you're on the podcast, you can look this up yourself. This man is the biggest box office star in the history of humankind. His movies have made more money than any other actor. Rob, tell us about Mr. Samuel L. Jackson.
Well, and it's because of kind of a chance phone call that he got into the MCU, which of course is what has raised his earning potential to where it is. So back in the early 2000s, Marvel Comics launched something called the Ultimate Universe, right? Started with Ultimate Spider-Man, Ultimate X-Men, eventually turned into the Ultimates, which was the Avengers, all right? And so it was a chance to kind of relaunch a universe, a separate universe, make it grittier, darker, a little bit more realistic, but start everybody from scratch. Now, the Nick Fury that Scott and I grew up with looked a lot more like I did at the beginning.
Looks a lot like Rob
White
right
dude,
now. Yep.
Little gray around the edges, the
Yep.
eye patch. He was in World War II leading the Howling Commandos, right? I mean, geez, Hasselhoff played him in a movie. For
What a
God's
great
sake,
choice.
all right? So, but for the Ultimates, they're like, we don't have to use the same dude. Let's change it up. And the writers started talking about, I want a guy more like Samuel L. Jackson to be my Nick Fury. And so they said, well, why don't we actually make him look like Samuel L. Jackson in the comic book? So they call Samuel L. Jackson and say, hey, can we use your image? Now, I imagine there was possibly some monetary backing of that as well. But so for this Ultimate Universe, which actually a lot of the MCU is based off of, Samuel L. Jackson looks like Nick Fury because Nick Fury looks like Samuel L. Jackson. So then when they decide to add the post-credit scene to Iron Man where Nick Fury shows up, they were kind of like, it'd be funny. We should get Samuel L. Jackson to play Nick Fury now that he looks like him in the comic books. And that was it. That whole thing, all of these, billion-dollar movies starring Samuel L. Jackson came because he took a phone call from a comic book company that says, hey, we want to make one of our characters look like you.
That's insane.
That's it. That's how he gets the role. And, of course, he's the glue.
Yeah,
he
of course.
holds everything together. He is the reason they all come together. This is his idea. And without Samuel L. Jackson, having the gravitas to control all these different people, right? But also
because he's not super powered. It's not like he can't go
nothing,
toe to toe with Thor. It's nothing but attitude.
With any one of them, he couldn't go toe to toe, and yet they have to. At some point, they start off distrusting him because he's the spy, Cap, right? But eventually, you find out as the additional movies go on, he really is in it for the best of everybody, and they start trusting him, and that's why things work the way that they do. So
And
Samuel L. Jackson, that's where it all came from.
And it's such an interesting thing because there are so many actors that could have done that role, but Sam Jackson brings the right spiciness to it. I'll say, we could have had Sam Elliott would maybe have made that work.
Yeah, that would've
Sam
been good.
Shepard, if he was still alive, could have done that. Denzel Washington would have brought a different vibe to it.
That's a good point, babe.
Michael Freeman,
you get
Morgan
Robert
Freeman.
Redford.
Yeah.
You get Robert Redford in Civil War. He would have been a great version.
Morgan
of Nick
Freeman
Fury.
coming would have been a gentle, caring. But what you need is for Nick Fury to be like, yeah, no, I know they're all superheroes, but I know how to handle them, and it's a pain in my ass, but I can handle them. Like that sass of his and that willingness to be the bad guy for the superheroes. Like, you're going to have to figure it out. What are you going to do now? Kind of attitude is so incredibly good for Nick Fury, especially for people who know nothing about the Avengers.
There's a subtext in Samuel L. Jackson's performance where he knows he's dealing with people that could murder him on the drop of a hat.
That's actually the best way to say that.
And yet he also he's running interference. He's doing all of this patience. He's like, these people are all a walking natural disaster. But it's not in the script. It's just in the performance. Watching him be like, I have to clear a path for this person to figure out how they are going to be successful for benefiting all of humankind. And it's in nothing but the motherfucker's face. He does it all with his face and his voice, and it's staggering. His talent is just unbelievable.
And there are several pieces of the Avengers admin team. I don't know what to call them. Nick Fury is the big one, but Agent Paulson is another one where they understand that they are up against things people that they will never compete with. I mean, Nick Fury can give you a run for your money, but if the Avengers turn against Fury, it's over. And he knows that. And Agent Paulson, even less so. Like, he knows he's going into this room with a huge amount of skills, none of which will protect him if they turn on him.
Yeah.
You know, none of which. And yet, both of these guys are trying to save the world. You know, both of those guys are willing to do it.
Fury and Coulson, played by Clark Gregg, doing a wonderful job, because he's really the only other one that's in all the movies until, well, about halfway through this one. They're good cop, bad cop.
Yeah.
That's what they are. Fury's the bad cop. Coulson,
good point,
smooths out the edges. Yep. And when they needed something to bring them together, Coulson even did that.
Yeah.
And come on, that's just, it's, again, listen,
you're totally
we give
right.
Joss Whedon a lot of crap, and he deserves a lot of crap because he's inconsistent and he does some really stupid stuff. This was not inconsistent.
No.
This was not stupid.
No.
It was extremely well written, extremely well acted, extremely well directed, and extremely well edited. And I got to give him credit for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he's the puppet master behind this.
Yep.
I mean, this movie, as A pointed out at the beginning of this, made 5 times the budget of how much was it? 210 million?
It was $220 million budget, and it made $1.5 billion.
Help me with the math, baby. Is that 7 times?
I cannot.
That's an enormous. It's a big multiplier.
Seven times.
Seven
times for a $220 million movie.
Huge budget.
7 times. One of the most expensive movies, easily a top 10 most expensive movie of all time. To make 7 times return on that budget is that you have to lay that credit at the hands of the director at the end of the day.
Got it.
Well, yes, but also Kevin Feige, I think. I think there is something to be said, because while this movie was wildly successful and wildly building for the MCU, you absolutely have to give credit to Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, because they made characters that would last. And that is, I am completely a novice with comics, but I would say part of the issue with MCU being MCU and DC having trouble getting the same foothold is Jack Kirby and Stan Lee always wrote characters that could, at the end of the day, hold their head high. And that doesn't always happen in DC seems a little bit darker to me, and so maybe they don't last as the world gets more woke, for lack of a better phrase.
Let's talk about that for just a moment. That DC being darker is completely a brand new thing that began with The Dark Knight, which is one of the tentpole properties that put DC sort of like back into competition with Marvel. Marvel, as far as writing goes and characters goes, had kind of ruled the roost, because DC heroes, by and large, were basically squeaky clean Clark Kent, Superman type people.
Right.
Marvel had the Peter Parkers, the guys who couldn't pay their own rent. They had a completely different thing. And
the real life problems.
Well, that's this is the point I'm
problems.
making. Like the MCU characters are people like us.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And the DC characters are not necessarily people like us. And I'm not saying that that's good or bad. What I'm saying is that doesn't travel well as we are traveling through this now future, where we're also questioning our own how we grew up, what we learned, why we learned it.
Yeah.
That Marvel and Jack Kirby and Stan Lee's work, especially Stan Lee's work, carries that way. But I will say it's a huge thing also. I know they made a $1.51 billion, but Kevin Feige also made absolutely two
he's a
bona fide
king.
huge stars
He's royalty.
out of Tom Hiddleston and Chris Hemsworth. And they wouldn't have gotten the status they have now. I'm not saying they wouldn't ever get it. They wouldn't have gotten it in 2012 or 2013 unless Kevin Feige had pushed for that and made them who they were, I think.
We got to give props to Jon Favreau, who directed the first Iron Man movie, and Robert Downey Jr. too. Those two launched the whole thing.
For sure.
And that's when Feige started saying, you know what, this could work. This might work.
For sure.
And he was patient enough to build the 5 movies up before bringing them all together, which is something DC did not do. And you won't say it, A, but I will. That's why those are shitty movies.
Well, I won't say because I'm less familiar. But yeah, it's one of those things that I'm sure that was a fight in a whole bunch of boardrooms. A whole bunch of boardrooms. Let's just put out this movie. We need the money. We put out this stinker. Let's put this. And he's like, no, we can't.
Yep. You got Iron Man. Now let's do the Avengers.
Yeah.
No, wait. Be patient.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Kevin Feige getting out of finding talented people to do a job, getting the fuck out of their way, giving them some guidance, but like clearly, Joss Whedon, you get what we're trying to do, letting the people create their thing and go from there. Let's go into
having an overall vision that you make sure everything else fits in.
That's the point I'm making about Stanley and Jack Kirby too. They did that their whole career as well.
Let's all go over a couple of esoteric key points about the movie, and then we'll start riding our way out of this sunset. Robbie, what's your favorite other thing about the movie besides the cast?
There's a great anecdotal story about Chris Evans, and you talked about how well this crew and cast work together, especially the actors, the main actors, the 6 or 7, 8 of them. If you count. Maria Hill and Nick Fury and stuff. So this was shot over 7 months in multiple locations, not only just in the U.S., but some of them were international locations, right? So very rarely was the whole main cast in the same city at the same time.
Okay.
But it just so happened that one of the very few times that it happened, they were on a group text, and Chris Evans just texted, "Assemble." And they all got together and went out and had a night on the town together. The whole cast did. And that was the whole text. And I mean, that's, you talk about if Robert Downey Jr. says, hey, let's do this, you're in. Yeah. Chris Evans texts me and says, "Assemble." I'm not even changing clothes. I'm out the damn door. Right?
I'm gonna be putting on my shoes as I leave the door, going like, where?
From my perspective, there's a few authors that I'm friends with, and then a few authors just sort of next level. But let's say there's some crazy writer's room where it's like me, Pierce Brown, Stephen King, fucking Robin Cook, like anybody, and then like Robin Cook just texts, "Assemble." You're like, fuck,
where?
We're going out. Michael Crichton just texted, "We're going out and getting hammered. Let's go. I'm in." And like, even though he is Chris Evans, like he must have had that moment. Like Chris Evans must have called his boys from back in high school and been like, if I don't get a night drinking with all of these A-list stars, you guys will never let me live it down. And he just had to make it happen.
I also think there was a moment maybe where Chris Evans was like, a little moment, like, okay, just send it, just assemble, just
It probably
okay.
started
I'm sending it.
Hey, I looked at the call sheet and it turns out we're all in town. You guys want to have dinner? And then he went delete, and just said assemble. I mean, that's great.
It's incredible. All right, one of my final notes is Gwyneth Paltrow is much taller than Robert Downey Jr. She's barefoot in all of her scenes in Stark Tower, while Downey is in platform shoes, so he looks taller than her. I personally, as a short guy, I think this time has passed. I actually think there's a new thing going around where, who is one of the Spider-Men? I'm doing a terrible job. There's one of the Spider-Man actors who's also
dating
Lord of the
Zendaya
Rings,
now?
is dating a woman who's taller than him, and like it's a social media thing. But when you look at the pictures of this dude who's got his arm around this gorgeous, very talented human being, you can see he's just like, it doesn't matter if I'm short. I'm this dude, and this chick sees this in me. And we're
Tom Holland.
Tom Holland doesn't give a goddamn if he's 4 inches shorter than this person he is dating. And I think that is something that I would like to start getting away from in movies, because to be honest with you, if you're a short guy dating a taller woman, that's even more swagger than a tall guy dating a woman who's
And I think we're
less than
starting
you.
to see a little bit more of that. We're starting to see, like, not the, the high school quarterback falls in love with the geeky fat nerd girl just because he did it on a dare and then she turns out to be cool. Like, we're starting to see stories.
Yeah, she took her glasses and that ponytail off.
Exactly. But we're starting to actually see things like that. And, I would argue that 10 Things I Hate About You might have been the start of that, which I know is probably going to get a lot of hate from the 90s, the Heath Ledger, Julia Stiles movie, which is based
10
on a
things
Shakespeare
I hate
play.
about that movie.
Yeah, there's zillions of things to hate, but, it was more... there wasn't the Julia Stiles was of course pretty, but she wasn't he wasn't the jock and she wasn't the high school nerd, and they got so I think we're getting more of that. We're getting stories where people are people and worthy of love and all that other stuff. I will say normally the thing that I want to bring up, which is normally a thing that Rob brings up at the end of the show, which is the body count in this movie. Because this is a Disney movie, you guys. And there are 151 sentients who die during this movie. And I think
incredible.
That's fascinating.
And
for
it's a
Disney
low
movie.
body count for Avengers movies, too. It gets way worse. All right, we'll finish up. Let's just point out, because this is straight eye candy from beginning to end, from all the people and all the hard work they did in their bodies, all the costuming, all the special effects. This is what's staggering. The Avengers had over 2,200 visual effects shots created by 14 different companies. 2,200 different effects shots that the studio paid for so that the movie could be all it could be. Mm-hmm. That is incredible. Rob, any last thoughts?
And then you've got to give the actors credit, because how often were they acting when the thing they were interacting with was not physically with them?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And I have no acting background at all. A couple little things in high school, but to think about you to give those performances in front of a green screen, and baby, you're a trained actress. How hard must that be?
I'll tell you, I have a theater degree and I spent 3 semesters at the American Academy of Dramatic Art, and I still can't flip and take a cell phone photo and look at the goddamn camera. So it's very hard, is my point.
All right.
If we're getting to the last thing, I think we should
are.
quickly mention the last thing in the movie, the post-credit scene where they're eating shawarma, right?
Yep.
So that was, again, the whole shawarma line, another ad lib by Robert Downey Jr., right? And that they added in later. But they added that scene in while they were doing the press junket, so all of them were in town at once. And Chris Evans had already gotten a buzz cut and grown a full beard to be in the movie Snowpiercer.
Okay.
Right? And so when they're doing that scene, you'll have to look at it again. He's sitting with his hand covering the whole side of his face because he has like a extra level of chin put on so that it covers his beard, and he's wearing Chris Evans Captain America wig over his buzz cut, right? And so you'll notice he's the only one that's not eating. He's the only one that's not eating, and that's the reason why. So that was, again, something that came up that they added in, that everybody loves it, because it's another point of character that you see all these people get along.
It's got to be the strongest scene I've ever seen, where there's roughly $3 billion worth of box office actors in the scene, and nobody says anything. And nobody says a word.
But I do think that this was also for Kevin Feige to have whoever did all the work of no, we got to wait. It's not time. It's not time. It's not time. It's not time for the Avengers. Trust me. This is one of the ways that they did that, because this is, I think the MCU is the only movies that I will wait for. I don't care. I'll look it up online afterwards and get it from. If anybody else does anything sneaky in the credits, I'm like, whatever. But I'll just sit there the whole time now with the MCU. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of fun.
Yeah, especially when they got 14 companies with special effects with each 700 people working.
Exactly.
It takes a long time to get to them damn post-credit scenes.
So I think that finishes this week's Story Smack for you guys. I'm so glad you joined us. Now we do Story Smacks on the second Saturday of every month, the second Saturday only of every month. The next one is August 14th, the second Saturday of August. We will be discussing any given Sunday. In anticipation of the NFL season kicking off on August 21st.
Oh my God, I can't wait. I can't. I am urinating on myself for NFL. For the NFL week, for once again deluding myself into thinking that my Detroit Lions might be turning a corner and actually doing something with a franchise made of Dismal. So I'm allowing myself to be duped into thinking something might actually happen, and NFL's coming, and Any Given Sunday is spectacular. It's a spectacular football movie. I'm excited.
And if any of you are watching because you are a fan of Scott's GFL and not necessarily a fan of football, Any Given Sunday is also for you. It's a similar thing. If you're a fan of Al Pacino, doesn't matter what he's doing in this movie, you're still a fan of Al Pacino.
Everybody's good in this. Everybody's good in this.
Robbie, thank you so much for joining us. I think we are done for the day with you. I hope you have a great weekend, and we'll see you on, we'll see you before that, but we'll see you on August 14th here again.
A Sigler, a symbol.
Love you, bro. We'll see you in the next one. Bye.
See ya.
Bye.
All right, baby. Close us out.
Okay, that is it for episode 73 of StorySmack. You can find Scott and I online. Scott is at Scott Sigler on Twitter and Instagram, and his Facebook is facebook.com/Scott Sigler. I am at ARealGirl on Twitter and at a.real.girl on Instagram.
And you can find us online at facebook.com/StorySmack, which sometimes I update. I'm very behind on that. We live stream StorySmack every other Saturday.
Once a month on Saturdays.
Oh, sorry. So we live stream it the second Saturday. StorySmack, Scott Sigler, the 6 S's. It's sort of easy to remember at twitch.tv/Scott Sigler, youtube.com/Scott Sigler, and facebook.com/Scott Sigler. Come join us, hang out in the chat room. We'd love to have you.
And of course, in addition to StorySmack, we do a once weekly live stream called Sigler in Place on Wednesdays at 6 p.m. right here where you're watching this until this whole crazy time is over.
And we release an unabridged episode of a serialized podcast novel every week. You get episodes for free, unabridged, serialized fiction from a fancy pants New York Times bestselling author every Sunday via iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and more. Just go to scottsigler.com/subscribe for the links.
And last, Scott hosts a rad Friday late afternoon Twitch stream where he talks pop culture monsters, and you can catch it on twitch.tv/Scott Sigler. And you should absolutely check it out.
And if you are just hearing this, our very first guest in the show is going to be New York Times bestselling author Jonathan Mayberry. And you heard it here first. Jonathan Mayberry's favorite monster that we're going to talk about is the werewolves from Dog Soldiers. That is what we're going to be talking about for at least 30 minutes, and then we'll see where it goes from there.
We do hope you subscribe so that you can hear Scott's books, more StorySmack, Sigler in Place, and Jonathan Mayberry talking about monsters and all sorts of goodness in the future.
Until the next episode, we will talk to you all real soon. All right, you guys watching at home, that's the podcast episode. I thought this was pretty fun. Let's get Rob back on.
Yeah, let's get Rob back on.
I'm still here.
You guys watching live right now, all the 12 of you who remain, you're the only ones who get to see this last second. I thought this was a great episode.
Yeah,
obviously,
really fun.
Rob and I have giant chubs for superhero movies,
Oh,
especially
I don't
good
have chubs,
superhero movies.
but
You
yeah.
have a spiritual chub.
Yeah, you do. Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, you have access to a giant chub anytime you want. So,
That's
This
for
is a
after the
family
episode,
show.
son. That's for after the
Scott,
episode.
is David Lamb still in the chat room?
I don't
maybe.
know. I don't know if David Lamb's in the chat room, but go ahead and say hi to David Lamb. What you want to say?
All right,
What
well, I
you wanna
wanted to because he had reached out and said that he kind of wanted my thoughts on the Black Widow movie, which I, of course, saw yesterday. So,
All right, spoiler alert.
Oh, yeah, he's here.
Spoiler alert if you're watching. Go ahead, Robbie.
I think I can do this without spoilers. At least
All right,
I will
hit me.
really try to. Just in general, it's worth seeing. It's really well done. So the thing is, the movies got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and we go to, Infinity War and Endgame. You couldn't keep going bigger.
You can't go bigger.
So what you have to do is go the exact opposite way and make a smaller story that's more character driven, and that's really what they do.
Okay.
And it's worth seeing. The Elena and Red Guardian characters are so extremely well done.
Okay.
Florence Pugh and the guy from Stranger Things.
Yep.
His name I can't remember right
David
now.
Barber.
Yes,
David
they do
yeah.
such a good job.
Okay.
Oh, good.
And listen, there's some action scenes. It is certainly a slower movie. It's a more talky, thoughtful movie. But I'm telling you, the family dynamic, the sister dynamic, it's really well written and well directed. So I would encourage you to
David
see it. Just
Harbour.
understand.
Harbour. Thanks,
You're going to
Sean.
go see a different movie, Barber. Thank you. Than what you
Hey,
are
Nelson.
used to
Hey,
from
Nelson.
from the MCU. I will say one thing that disappoints me. Everyone already knows, and if you don't know this, you haven't been paying attention. The villain Taskmaster appears in this film.
Okay.
And it's he's the character is wasted. They don't do a good job with Taskmaster. And
Love Taskmaster. Love Taskmaster.
It's disappointing, but honestly, everything else I think is really great in this movie.
Rob, you can't see the chat room, but David Lamb says, thanks, Rob, for sharing his thoughts on Black Widow. He is in complete agreement. So there we go.
There you go. Well, it's because David Lamb's a smart guy.
we have plans tonight to watch McGregor. But maybe
watching what might be Connor's last
there you
fight.
go. I got Poirier sauce right there.
Yeah,
I got it right there.
yeah.
We're gonna have Poirier sauce and proper 12, and I mean that Conor McGregor has provided me personally so much entertainment over the last 10 years. I'm so excited for this fight. I can't wait. I'm going to be super drunk and having a good time.
But
what I get the most entertainment from him is when he gets his smart little mouth shut like Poirier is going to do tonight. Yeah!
And here's the difference. So Scott and Rob grew up together, and a lot of their shared experience has to do with their love of sports.
Yeah.
And I'm really excited because we're having food.
I would say...
I'm excited to watch it, but I'm super excited for our menu,
I can
too.
sum up Rob and I's entire lifelong relationship in 4 words. Sports, comic books, chicks. That's it. That's all we bring to the table.
Not necessarily in that order.
All right, ladies and gentlemen.
But maybe we can see it on set tomorrow. Maybe we can go out tomorrow to the movies. Yeah.
You want to take me on a date?
I would.
Wait,
I'll even buy you popcorn and Reese's Pieces and,
You already
and a
had
drink.
me a Black Widow. Oh my goodness, this girl is spectacular, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, listen, once you get the answer you wanted, stop talking. You're not a very
the
good
thing
negotiator.
the thing is, like, you don't understand. He just was like, oh, she up-leveled for no good reason.
Yeah, she does that.
And you did the same thing. But trust me, there's a good reason. There's always a good reason.
You might need to wear your red Speedos tonight, buddy.
I might. I got some new ones with the flags of the world around the waistband. So yes, sir.
No.
All right, Robbie.
Unfortunately, they're only hanging at half staff. Small penis joke.
I like that you explained
those of you
it.
still watching at home, all of this gets cut. The podcast crew does not get to hear any of this good stuff. Robbie, I love you. We'll see you later.
Love you. I'll see you next week.
See ya.
Yay,
Yeah,
see you
Robbie's
then.
going to come out. Ladies and gentlemen, A and I are done for the day. We're now going to go watch a bunch of incredibly talented, hardworking athletes beat the living piss out of each other, eat a bunch of food, drink a bunch of whiskey, and generally celebrate life to the nth degree. Baby, anything else to say before we go?
No, we will see you the next time. We're here at least once a week, and you guys should join us. We're going to stay here for a while.
Join us for Monster of the Week. It's definitely going to be on
John,
Twitch.
nice to see you out there, John Bivens.
John Bivens, what's up, brother? It's definitely going to be on Twitch, but we're thinking about now putting it on the other streams as well. But Jonathan Mayberry is a straight up pimp motherfucker. He's one of the coolest dudes I've ever met. And join us. So this coming Friday, 4 o'clock. Do you have any idea what the date is of that, baby girl?
I can tell you. Just give me one
We'll
sec.
tell you. This is only for you.
I think it's the 16th.
The 16th.
But let me tell you
We're
for
going to watch
sure.
Jonathan Mayberry lose his fucking gourd.
17th, sorry.
No,
Friday. Friday is the 16th.
Friday, July 16th. He doesn't know it yet, but I'm going to go Jonathan Mayberry into losing his fucking gourd over the dog soldiers werewolves. And I can't say he's wrong. That's it. We're done with you all. We are now going to give you a big kiss off into the sky. Ready, baby?
Yep.
Mwah!